What's going on, guys? Welcome to the Hustle or Stay Basic channel, the Invest or Stay Basic segment. I'm your host, KG, and as always, today we're going to take a look at a company that you guys recommended. So I appreciate you dropping a comment. I'll post the image here. You'll probably see I got a bunch of videos to do based on your comments, so keep dropping them. And if you enjoyed this video and enjoy the value that I bring, please subscribe, drop a like. I really appreciate it. I think we just hit 250 subscribers, so let's go for 500 next. As you can tell in the title, today we are looking at MMED. Shout out to Shiva Amini for recommending this video. I appreciate you dropping a comment, and I hope you enjoy this video. So let's not waste any time and get into it. So MMED, ticker symbol MMEDF, is currently trading for $2.86 US and has a market cap of $936 million. It is a pure healthcare spec play stock. I'll get into why it's such a pure spec play. It's a large and growing TAM. If you're not familiar with TAM, it's total addressable market. So they're clearly addressing a large market, and it's Shark Tank approved. And if you guys are familiar with the show, no one went to Shark Tank and pitched this product to them or their company to them, but one of the sharks is an investor, and he's a huge advocate for the company. As for its performance over the last 12 months, I mean, it's up 450%. You know, if you invested before 2021, congrats. I hope you're holding, or I hope you've made some profits. I mean, no one's gone broke taking a profit, so congrats on that. All right, so let's go take a look at what this company does. So MMED is a psychedelic medicine biotech company that discovers, develops, and deploys psychedelic-inspired medicines and therapies to address addiction and mental illness. And when we're talking about psychedelics, we're talking about, mushrooms, LSD, MDMA, DMT. For all my cannabis investors, you got to get on the hard stuff. I'm just kidding. The Hustle or Stay Basic brand does not promote drug usage. All right, I said it. I did my part. Okay, so why is it a spec play? Let's go take a look at sales and earnings. Yeah, so this is why it is a spec play. No earnings, no sales. Way too early for that. I mean, in this industry, you got to go through a whole process to get a drug administered by the FDA. But, the company's already at almost $1 billion US market cap. So that's why it's a pure spec play, because there's speculation that they might get a drug or product out that will, change the industry. So what's the opportunity? What's the TAM? Let's get into that. So on this slide, we have the total addressable market for psychedelics. And as you can see, anxiety, there's $4.7 billion of global annual anxiety drug sales, ADHD, almost 10 billion, addiction, 42 billion, and depression, almost 10 billion. So that totals out to be about $65 billion. But, the wild card, which is not really good news. I mean, it's good news for the company, but it's not good news for, the human race as a whole, is, this whole COVID-19 experience, or the pandemic, has drastically increased the amount of overdoses, drug abuses, addiction, anxiety, depression, all the bad things that really helps this company. But, you kind of got to feel for the human race. So that's why they're saying, hey, there's an estimated $100 billion TAM for this company. So I guess based on this $100 billion number, the current market cap is $1 billion. So they're pricing this company as they'll take over, or they'll own 1% of this TAM in the future. Okay, so I think just to summarize quickly, they make psychedelic drugs to, handle a lot of these mental illnesses. And, what's the process? How do you even get a drug out? So I got this chart here to explain the FDA approval process. How do you get a drug in market? So let's take a look at that. So step one, you develop a drug, you get it tested on some animals, you fill out an IND application. And if you're not familiar with what IND is, it's an investigational new drug application where, you talk about what's the composition of the drugs, how is it manufactured, and stuff like that. We jump into phase 1 of clinical trials where you have, 20 to 80 volunteers participating in that. If everything goes well there, we bump into phase 2 clinical trials, which looks into or emphasizes patients who actually suffer from some of these diseases, and we test on that. And then we go to phase 3 clinical trials where we're looking at thousands of volunteers being tested on. I'm out of breath just explaining that. Are we done? Are we good? Do we have a drug? Does the FDA say yes, you're good to go? Unfortunately not. There's a little bit more to it. So after all those clinical trials, the FDA meets with the drug sponsor. You got to fill out an NDA or a new drug application. You go through that. The FDA has 60 days to review your NDA or your new drug application. And then they go over what you're going to put on the label of the drug. They come in, they do a facility inspection, and then finally, step 12, I guess, we get FDA approval. So if you did not know that process, drop a like, subscribe. I mean, I learned this as well, and it actually kind of makes me feel a little bit safe that at least there's a thorough process before we, us consumers ingest drugs that these manufacturers are making. I think the next reasonable question to ask is, how long does this process take? Well, I got a slide for that. So it's not a number you want to hear, but I got a stat from 2018 that it takes nearly 14 years on average for new drugs to get approved. Yikes. So where is MindMed in this whole process? Are they at the start, in the middle, or close to the end? I think that's important for you to understand as an investor or potential investor. So the good news here is at least we're not at the very start. It looks like we got a couple items in the clinical trials section, which I showed in that timeline in the previous slide. We got a drug treating anxiety using LSD. We got, some addiction related drugs using a psychedelic substance called ibogaine. And we have some LSD microdosing that's trying to tackle adult ADHD. All in about phase 1, phase 2 clinical trials. So that's good to hear. Personally, I think one of the most promising items here is this 18-MC opioid withdrawal, because, if they're successful with that, they can apply that to many other addictions. I think at least, with alcohol abuse growing and being a big factor, especially after this pandemic. Okay, so we learned about the financials, which, is kind of non-existent, the total addressable market, the process of getting a drug approved, and what they have in the pipeline. Let's go talk about the shark. When I think about Shark Tank, or if you're Canadian, Dragon's Den, I think about Mr. Wonderful or Kevin O'Leary, and he's a big advocate for this company. I have a quote here on some things that he said. So I'm not going to do a voice or something or a voiceover for him, but I'll just read the quote. It says, "I think it's just the beginning of the game. When you look, oh my God, I can't even read. When you invest in biotech, you want the largest number of molecules and most trials because you don't know the outcome of any of it. Either it's binary. It's either a loser, a zero, or it's a spectacular outcome, or a one. That's the nature of biotech investments. But if you're only betting on one molecule, you have a huge risk. JR has got multiple molecules, multiple trials in multiple countries. That's his plan. He's quickly become the leader in the space. He's the guy. I'm a huge fan of that. By the way, on that one, I remember Alex, he's talking about some guy that does due diligence for him, and he said, this guy went and did some due diligence, and he's like, hey, screw putting your money, I'm putting in my own money in it. Basically, it's what he said during the seeding for MindMed. So, clearly he's an advocate. He's got some due diligence guys that are like, hey, I'm putting my money in, Kevin. Like, hey, if you're not going in, I'm definitely going in. So definitely some optimism for the company. They got the shark. The shark's like, hey, I'm in. So now I'm just going to share my final thoughts. And I got a bunch of them for this company, and I hope you enjoy them. Number one, Mr. Wonderful, Kevin O'Leary is right. It is binary. You're either, the clinical trials fail or they pass. And he's saying, hey, we got multiple at-bats at this. So he thinks, or he's being optimistic that potentially they will find one solution or one drug that they can get approved and to market. So yeah, he's absolutely right. Number two, solid team of subject matter experts. I highly recommend everyone to go into the investor relations section for MindMed and just take a look at those doctors and scientists that they got. They are leaders in the psychedelics industry for sure. Here's a risk that I just want to lay out for some investors is they could go through the whole clinical trial process, get to the FDA, and the FDA could be like, psychedelics, nah, we're not going to let you get approved. So keep that in mind. There is significant risk with this investment. This is something to be bullish on, but they could also be listed on the NASDAQ. There has been discussions about that. I think that will open up this company to loads of investors, and that could be a bullish thesis to increase the share price or the market value of this company. Here's something also you might want to take away as a shareholder is, as a new company with no sales, they need to fund their operations or fund their clinical trials. And they can do that by two methods. They can issue more shares to raise equity, or they can take on debt. And personally, I think like if you have no sales, you probably don't want to take on more debt. You'll probably issue more shares, and that could dilute your shareholder value. So your share price could actually go down based on the amount of shares that they issue. So just keep that in mind as well. Lastly, just want to talk about the potential. I mean, right now, the price or the market cap is pricing in that they take over or they own 1% of the total addressable market for, anxiety, ADHD, depression, addictions, stuff like that. If they get a drug approved and they bring it to market, I mean, this could easily be a $5 billion to $30 billion company, quite easily. But then again, like it's a big risk, they could not get any drug approved over the next 10 years. And, this company could be worth less to nothing, maybe 200 million. Maybe you lose a lot of money on that. So keep that in mind that there is huge potential, but there is huge risk as well. So what do you guys think? Are you buying MindMed? Did you find value in this video? If you did, please like the video, please subscribe. Drop a comment if you want me to take a look at a company. I love making these videos for you. I love the feedback. I'm totally enjoying it. Personally, I will not be investing in MindMed. I like the idea of the company. I hope they succeed, but it's just too much speculation for me, kind of gambling for me. And I don't got gambling money. I want sure shots. So I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.